Many people think that Turkish food is just about kebabs, whether it be doners, shish, wraps or whatever, but that is absolutely not the case. Whilst the kebab is the centrepiece and most famous part of the cuisine, there's certainly a lot more going on when it comes to Turkish cuisine than meets the eye. Join me for today's vlog about Turkish street food with hardly a kebab in sight. Now then, Muttonistas, people's view of Istanbul, if they haven't been here before, is often a bit clouded. They think of some heavy, steaming metropolis full of ancient bazaars. Istanbul is actually a surprisingly modern city, particularly on the European side. I have been to the Asian side as well, and it isn't actually that old there either. Of course, there are architectural wonders from the past, and one of the other areas where the Turks have kept their traditions extremely well is when it comes to food. So, Muttonistas, I'm sure you're hungry like I am. Let's go and find something that I don't actually usually bring you on my vlogs, breakfast. And of course, off these modern boulevards, you can find these little alleyways teeming with street stalls, food outlets, you name it. Doner, old tea houses, bakeries, all sorts of things. But I, Muttonistas, am here for one of Turkey's most traditional breakfast items called Menemen. I've come to Ladus Menen, the most famous Menemen house in Istanbul. It's a dish I've only had once before, but it was pretty good when I had it there in Antalya, so let's see if this place lives up to its reputation. I have a funny feeling this is the sort of place which serves only one thing, and that's usually a good thing. So for those of you who don't know what menemen is, it's a Turkish type of scrambled egg with peppers and tomatoes and the like. As always, I hate these things if they're overcooked, but such is the reputation of this house, I somehow doubt it will be. And you can see actually the chef here in a semi-open kitchen, hard at work, scrambling and preparing away. Now then, let's look at the menu. And it's a very small menu. All your types of menemen, other omelettes, other breakfast dishes, and to be honest, there's no point coming here if you're not going to have menemen. I'm going to go for the sucuk menemen, which is a Turkish sausage, often served as part of a meze in the evening. In the UK, they're usually made of lamb, but I suspect it'll be beef here. And copious amounts of bread arrived even before I put the order in, along with some tea and some water. So the dish, which has been freshly made, came pretty quickly. I suppose it doesn't take too long to scramble some eggs, does it? And here we are, Muttonistas. Wow, doesn't that look rich and creamy? Now, I can imagine you could get through a whole loaf of bread mopping this stuff up, but I'll have to take it easy on the bread, otherwise I'm not going to be able to bring you anything else today. Anyway, let's give it a whirl. Oh yeah, that's nice, that's really nice. Slightly watery scrambled eggs, which surprised me, but the wateriness actually comes from the sauce, which is a tomato and pepper based sauce. I guess the sauce just comes out through the natural addition of the ingredients, and the sausage adds that little bit of salt that's needed to make this dish complete. And another thing is that the sausage, the sucuk, adds a bit of spice to the dish, which I quite like. So if you like spicy, despite there being many options here, go for the one with the sausage. Okay, folks, overcooked it certainly isn't, and it's going down like a treat. So I'm going to have to put the camera down and get on with it, and I'll be back with you in a few ticks. Oh, and before I do put the camera down, I've detected some green chilies in here. That's where the heat's coming from rather than the sausage. Well, probably as well as the sausage, but that is win-win-win for me. Well, what a great way to start the day that was. This place certainly lived up to its reputation. It was clearly better than the version I'd had before, if I remember correctly, of course. I'm not really sure quite how they cook it to get the eggs to that consistency, but it's so tasty, and I'm glad I held back on the bread, because, I mean, you could eat a whole loaf mopping the juicy eggy goodness up. So I didn't go mad on the bread, so it sits fairly light in the stomach, which is good, because later in the day we've got quite a lot more food to eat, and we wouldn't want to be wanting that wafer thin mint, would we, Muttonistas? I mean, even on the busiest of modern shopping streets, you're never far away from a doner here. Okay, Muttonistas, time for another little snack. And I found a very interesting item here that I think is unique to Turkey, which is stuffed mussels. Now, of course, with shellfish, you always have to be a bit careful. So I've gone to a place that supposedly has a grand reputation, without being too expensive either, tucked down another of those little alleyways. That's basically what we're looking for, but not from this place. Slightly concerning that there's no ice there, but it does seem to me that a lot of people eat these things, so if the turnover's fast and it's fresh, then there's not going to be a problem. And I also get the impression, maybe incorrectly, that standards of public health and hygiene, in this part of Turkey at least, are pretty high. One problem I have with the place that I intended to go to, there's nobody actually there eating, so I'm going to use my judgment and go to another place. And I have to say some of the reviews did look suspicious, so I half expected this. And just out of interest, this is the highly rated place. Now, for all I know, folks, those mussels might have been the greatest thing since sliced bread, and the place I'm about to go to might not be so good, but I don't want to take any chances, really, because I've got a lot of travel in Turkey in some of the less obvious parts of the country to come. So I've had a look around, a lot of alarm bells ringing, including one guy smoking very close to the shellfish display. So after a lot of investigation and inspection, I am going to plump for this Nevizade, kokorec and midye. I think midye is mussels. That's if I can get somewhere to sit. And it seems I have this front of the house seat where I can see they're making, I think they're grilling the mackerel that I had the other day in a fish sandwich. And they're battering whitebait as well. And of course they have my mussels, which the guy I think is preparing at the moment. I must admit, I never equated eating in Istanbul with mussels, but they do seem to be phenomenally popular. Another thing I don't understand is that all these places that serve the mussels seem to serve kokorec, the tripe and offal sandwich as well. Here we are, Muttonistas, the stuffed mussels. That hunk of lemon is going to get a mighty squeeze now. And I will say that the lemons here have been remarkably fresh and tasty, or at least the juice that I've squeezed out of lemons when I've had seafood dishes. So, as you can see, the mussels are stuffed with rice. It's something I've never had before. Quite cheap, 40 lira, about, well, less than £2 for this plate of mussels. Quite an interesting way of taking mussels. I probably prefer the natural ones, but having moule marinière 100% of the time is a little bit one-dimensional. And those of you who watch my Spanish videos know full well that I like mussels in vinegar, which is one of their specialities, and no, not malt vinegar in jars as we have at the British seaside. But this is actually a fantastic street food snack, this is. And again, I have to say, the citrus is out of this world. Not surprising, I suppose, given the weather here. Anyway, let's get on with these, because as always, Muttonistas, we've got bigger fish to fry. And they do like their sweets here in Istanbul, but Christ, how much of that is going there? That's possibly why I don't actually touch them very much. I'll put the odd sweet in and the odd review, but I mean, that is diabetic central, that is. Right, Muttonistas, we are in Taksim Square, which is the modern heart of Istanbul. It's just my luck that it has started raining the minute I got here, but I'm sure I can find a coffee shop to dive into. But before I do, there are some massive spits of doner kebab here. I've just got to show you them. I'm not going to have one because it's something that I've already introduced you to in one of my earlier vlogs from Istanbul, but just take a look at these. I mean, I'm going to soar on just carving those all day. They are even bigger at the next place. Can you believe it? Wow. So having already had one yesterday, I'm not going to bring you one today, as I said, but I might have a sneaky one off camera if I'm here in the next couple of days. So this place called Safa, I've walked past it on quite a few occasions. There always seems to be quite a queue here. So I'm going to check out what they're selling and why it's so popular. What are you making here? What is this? So he's making something called hamur there. I really don't know what it is, but it basically ends up looking like the picture that you can see behind the chef. He's rolling some dough into patty-sized shapes, and I'm guessing at some stage all of this stuff, sugar, syrup, pistachio and whatever that is, are added to the mix. So maybe that word that looks like katmer to me is what he's making. Now this here Canefe I have actually heard before. Again, I'm not sure what it is exactly. I'm going to look it up and leave a subtitle, but I think I may well have one. So indeed, katmer was what it was. So again, it's probably just me not understanding how to pronounce Turkish words properly. But it's like a folded pastry with clotted cream and pistachios. But I'm going to go for this Canefe because I've heard so much about it, but I've never actually had it before. So I had the choice of ordering the Canefe with cream, ice cream, or plain, and some other way which I couldn't understand. So I asked what was traditional, and the waiter said cream, so cream it will be. So I give you Muttonistas Canefe with cream. So what it is a pastry base called Canefe. I've no idea what that actually means, but that's what I was told it was. But it's soaked heavily in a sugar syrup with clotted cream and pistachios. Ice cream was a possibility, as I said, and so was plain. But I'll stick with tradition, and I suspect I'm going to find this horrendously sweet when I bite into it. And I was a bit surprised to see in the cutlery package that a knife and fork came out and no spoon. So I've cut it open. You can see how stringy that is actually. Quite sweet, but it's not as sweet as I expected it to be. It's hard for me to describe how stringy this is actually. It was like pulling up the cheese in a cheese fondue almost. Yeah, the cream really enriches this dessert and adds a cooling, refreshing balance to what is I wouldn't say hot, but warm dessert. As always, the ubiquitous cup of Turkish tea, which I quite like. And it's considerably hotter than the dessert. Now, I don't know why they fill it that high, because I, for one, will have difficulty picking that up until it's cooled down a bit. So I'd say, all in all, that's quite nice. I'm not big on sweets, but as sweets go, it was pretty good. And a common feature of all these Middle Eastern, Arabic, Turkish desserts, they're mainly pastry-based, they're soaked in syrup, and then have some nuts sprinkled on the top. Not every dessert, but that's the way the majority of desserts are made around here. I must say, Turks and Middle Eastern people have an incredibly sweet tooth. This place and other branches I've seen throughout the city have been absolutely rammed day and night, day after day. At least my little sweet isn't sitting too heavily in my stomach, and I will be back, which will be in a few hours for me and a few seconds for you, with my last dish of the day. But don't worry, it's not the last dish of the vlog. I'll be rolling it over with some more dishes tomorrow. Okay, Muttonistas, time for my late dinner, my final dish of the day. But I've come today to the Sirkeci Hotel and Cafe, which is very popular with Arab customers. So I'm guessing that they're pretty discerning about their kebabs and I'll get a decent one here. Although most of the other people seem to be smoking hookahs or water pipes and drinking tea. Now I've ordered the Adana kebab, the long thin mincemeat kebab, and asked for it spicy because it often is spicy. And it's just arrived, it's come with some bulgur, some bread and a few chips. And here we are, Muttonistas. And of course those lovely onions with sumac and some herbs. Now I've had a couple of bad dry Adanas on this trip so far, so let's hope this one's a bit better. Oh yeah, that is miles better than the ones I've had before. And as I suspected, they are not going to serve bad kebabs to Arab customers. Now I think this will be made out of beef or beef with a little lamb. I think it's only outside Turkey in countries that produce a lot of lamb where they actually serve up lamb. I have a feeling lamb is more expensive than beef here. So that was a very simple kebab, ground meat put on a skewer, spiced up a bit. And if it's not juicy, you should send it back. That was juicy. Had a couple of dry ones, but then again, I'd been eating in tourist traps to try and watch football at the same time. And I understand in southeast Turkey, there's a huge variety of this style of kebab available. It is one of my favourites because I always worry about lamb shish, for example, being a bit dry. So I'm going to finish watching the football and then I'll get a late tram back. It's easy for me to get a late tram back to the Sultanahmet area where I'm staying because the park you have to cross at the end is very heavily policed, thankfully. Not that I think there's a massive problem here. Right, Muttonistas, it is another day, but it's dark again. I've been having a heavy day of sightseeing. Behind me, the illuminated Hagia Sophia, crap pronunciation I'm sure, and on the other side of me the Blue Mosque. And these Muttonistas are just two of the architectural wonders that litter this part of Istanbul. It's why people stay in this area, but I have to say, it's so easy to get to by public transport or even walking, to be honest, that it's not necessary to stay around here just to see these buildings, as wonderful as they are. Anyway, Muttonistas, we are continuing our food tour, and today we're going to have a look at some bakery items, which is something that people are possibly a little bit unaware of, might have seen it on a Turkish restaurant menu back at home, not knowing exactly what it is and being afraid to order it. So come and have a look at what exactly they are, and I'll tell you how they taste. Okay, Muttonistas, it took me a while to actually find what I was looking for, and it's called a pide, which is a flat bread, which is a little bit like a cross between a pizza and a Georgian khachapuri. And eventually I found somewhere specialising in this, called the Bankslsr pide salonu. I know this is a speciality of the Black Sea coast of Turkey, and it actually happens not to be geographically too far away from Georgia. And I am actually going to that part of Turkey later on in my travels, but I thought, since it's an important part of Turkish cuisine, that I'd better bring one to you now. Okay, we can see the chef here laying out the flat bread ready to go in the oven, layered with cheese and Turkish sausage. And I guess that will be ready in a few ticks. And this restaurant doesn't appear to be licensed, but to be honest, I wouldn't want a beer or anything fizzy with all this dough. Wine I could have, but I'm quite happy with water anyway. And yet again, folks, the menu is quite small, which is a good thing if you have a speciality that you want to promote and serve. They do have Menemen, which is the breakfast scrambled eggs I've already brought to you, and they do have a few salad and something there which I honestly don't know what it is. Looks like some sort of stew, but I can't really translate the Turkish. And I'm pleased to say the waiter here has just subscribed. Always welcome. Et voilà, Muttonistas. That is actually a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. Well, as I said, it does look like it's halfway between a pizza and a khachapuri, but there's only one way to find out for sure, which is to taste. I'm hoping this isn't going to burn the roof of my mouth off. Now, whilst the base itself is quite thin, the crust is quite thick. So if you like that sort of pizza, I suspect you'd like this. It isn't exactly the same as a pizza, to be honest, especially if you like those really deep pan ones. It's nothing like that at all. Think more of an Italian style pizza, shaped like a small loaf of bread with quite a thick crust. And the toppings, the cheese is fairly mild. I'm not sure what the cheese is, but it's not far off cheddar or mozzarella. And another difference is the way it's topped. The cheese tastes a bit more like cheddar to me than mozzarella, which is quite interesting. And obviously the susuk, the lamb or beef sausage, is a topping that's probably unique to Turkey. Anyway, folks, I'm going to toil away with this, and since I've got one more thing I have to eat tonight, I'll probably only eat half of this, because it's actually a bit bigger than it probably looks when it's on camera. That was jolly splendid. It actually got very Moorish, and it's actually not that heavy, and I got through all of it. It looked quite big, let me say that. So, Muttonistas, that restaurant was located in quite a trendy part of town. The bill was £6, as always, not too expensive, even in the most expensive city in Turkey. If you were to add a soup and a salad, I think you'd have the basis for a full meal. However, for me, I'd rather share that between two as a snack. Now, I am by the docks today, and I am going to go across the Bosphorus to the Asian side of Turkey. Aha! Am I giving you a little travelogue here? No, of course not. I'm going over there because I've managed to find or scout a cracking restaurant over there which deserves our attention. Now, I don't think getting the ferry tickets and working out which one to take is going to be particularly easy, so I'm going to have to spend a while looking around to see what exactly I'm supposed to do. We wouldn't want to be going on the wrong ferry mutton style, would we now? So that was quite amazing actually. My Istanbul card, my transport card, which I've been using for trams, buses and metro here, I can use it to take the ferry for 6 lira. That, Muttonistas, is about 30p or 35 euro cents. And this, of course, is the day-to-day ferry that regular people who want to cross between the European and Asian side, if they're not driving and going through one of the tunnels or over one of the bridges, would take. There are, of course, a ton of fancy cruises you can take around and across the Bosphorus, but I'm sure you can check those out on a BBC travelogue if that's what you're looking for. Well, not too much pushing and shoving here, but more than you'd get in the UK. It's possible to sit indoors or outdoors here, but there's quite a stiff, cool breeze coming. I don't want to lose my hat and see it floating away in the Bosphorus, and I'm not properly caffeined up today, so I'm going to go in and take a Turkish coffee. Now the ferry seems to be heading off to Kadıköy, which is the other side of the European part. I think, or hope, that that is just a stop that the ferry makes en route. Otherwise, I've got on the wrong ferry again. Oh dear, I have just muttoned it up again. I have got myself over to the Asian side, but I took the wrong ferry, and I'm 7 kilometres north of where I need to be. So, nothing that a bus or a taxi can't solve. I could take the ferry back over and then find the correct one, but I think taking a taxi is what I'm going to do here. It's the safety play. Well, I'm getting a bit lost here. I found a taxi and he just pointed to the other side of the road, and all I found is one of these dolmus places. I think they're shared taxis. That's not what I'm looking for. Okay, Muttonistas, I think I found the street I want to go to. And I have to say, it doesn't feel that different to the European side here, but the street I'm going along is busy, so I'm very optimistic the place I'm looking for will be open. Now, the problem is, will they have sold out of the dish I was looking for? But the chap at my hotel, who was telling me about this restaurant, He said they do lots and lots of traditional dishes. So I'm going to be able to introduce something interesting for you here, and I'm not going to go hungry. So folks, I've reached the place I'm looking for, the Ciya sifresi. They have a restaurant and kebab shop, and I was told for the dish I'm looking for to try the kebab shop. So another little hunt to find their sister kebab shop. Hopefully won't be too long now. This is the kebab shop rather, so I accidentally stumbled into the right place. And these boys in front of me, kebabis do you want to call them, they're hard at work. I asked the waiter, do they have the dish I'm looking for? And it seems everything is kashti. And what a great day that is, Muttonistas. Today is Cig Kofte Day. All will be revealed shortly. The beverage has appeared uber fast, and it's the usual dynamic duo. Ayran and water, yogurt drink and water. Now they do have an English menu here, I'll take you through it briefly. Now the special they do on Wednesdays and Saturdays, I believe. It's an off-the-menu special. Anyway, in terms of the regular dishes, you can see here, it's again a small menu, a couple of soups, a couple of small starters. I had that recently, it was quite tasty. It's like a kibbeh, a Lebanese kibbeh with bulgur and lamb. And I've actually ordered this, the Findik lamasheen. Now the lamasheen was the extra bakery dish that I was going to bring you yesterday as part of this vlog. As luck has it, they have a very small portion I can have as a starter here, so problem solved, as the great Inspector Clouseau used to say. Some salads and a selection of kebabs and some more kebabs. And of course, if you want a full-size lamasheen or one of those pides I had yesterday, you can also have those. And this place, like a lot of places, particularly those serving southeastern specialities, is dry. Not that that bothers me, to be honest. I'm here for the food. Okay, my starters, or most of them, have arrived, and I present you, Muttonistas, a real rarity in the Islamic world, a raw dish. I bring you Cig Kofte. This is raw lamb meatballs with chili, onion, various other herbs and spices, and it is very unusual to get a raw dish when you come to eating halal food. And I have been looking forward to this since I arrived here. We have some cheese and some local bread. Not sure what the cheese is, but it actually reminds me a lot of Lebanese cheese I used to eat a lot of. Is it called shanklish? I'm not quite sure. Okay, let's try the cheese first. So despite us having no language in common, I've managed to find out how you eat this Cig Kofte. Apparently, we load the raw meatballs onto the lettuce, squeeze on some lemon and add some herbs. Right, Muttonistas, the bases are loaded, we found the holy grail. Let's see if it lives up to its awesome reputation. Yep, I asked for it spicy, and it is properly spicy. It's not going to burn my mouth off, but it's giving the roof of my mouth a bit of a tingle. You can taste the meat. There is a bit of bulgur mixed in there. There are various herbs, chili, and the lemon complements it beautifully. I have to say, the quality of the citrus out here is outstanding. I made a huge effort to find this place, and they only do it on Wednesdays and Saturdays, but my patience and diligence has been rewarded. I am in lambish heaven here, Muttonistas. And now we have the bakery item, the missing bakery item from last night, the mini lamasheen. Now obviously if you order it for a main you get one that's about 4 times the size of this, but it's like a very thin pizza with minced meat on top of it. I don't know if it's the same minced meat that they've used here for the raw meatballs, but it could be, I'm not sure. And I've been told that it's better to squeeze lemon on this as well. I think I preferred that to the pide last night. It isn't cheesy, which is a big difference, but it's not as doughy either. I mean, this would be like the perfect snack. I mean, just look at the size in the middle of the afternoon. Okay, you taste more of the dough than the meat because the meat's very thinly spread, but I think that's actually the point. And to round off this fantastic lunch, another kebab, and one I haven't tried before, believe it or not. Muttonistas, I give you liver kebab. Okay, let's give the liver a try. I know liver can be very hit and miss, depending on how they've cooked it. Wow, that is so juicy, with those lovely onions and sumac. And I have to say, even though in this part of the world they don't really do things rare or medium except for a beef steak, they still manage to make the meat juicy even though it's well cooked through. This is so good that I'm going to have to put the camera down and eat with two hands. And you know what? I might even risk a second glass of Ira. And just a footnote here, I'm not great with my herbs, but this is parsley. I can't say it's making a massive difference to the Cig Kofte, but it's quite pleasant, I'll give you that. And finally, we had to round a meal like this off with something I've not actually featured much of at all so far in this series, a Turkish coffee. Now I'm guessing most of you, if you're watching this video, you're aware of what a Turkish coffee is, but just to fill you in on a few things about it, there is some clay or mud at the bottom. It's not harmful, but it's unpleasant if you get it in your mouth and you have to wipe it out. So you don't drink all of the liquid, you drink 2/3 of it. Also, you can choose between sweet, medium and no sugar. Obviously, I've gone for no sugar. Okay, Muttonistas, that was jolly splendid. That all cost 15 quid. The liver kebab, cheese, bread, the Cig Kofte, the little pizza, a Turkish coffee, a water and a couple of Iros. Pretty decent value if you ask me. Okay, Muttonistas, Canefe is a wonderful place, very much worth a walk around, and of course it goes without saying that the food is pretty good here. And again, I think that was Gaziantep style food from the southeast of Turkey. I am going there later in the trip, so got quite a lot to look forward to there. Anyway, I'm heading back to the European side for the last dish, and I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment. I could have just got on the metro, which is opposite me. There we are, it would have been one change and Bob would have been your uncle. But apart from the ferry ride being quite pleasant, I want to see where I should have boarded on the other side, just in case I need to do this in the future. And also, Muttonistas, in case you need to do it in the future. Now, the place I boarded this morning was Menemen, and this seems to fit the bill. There are 3 stops. There's the one here, which I think is Besiktas, and Karakoy is the European bit just over the water near Taksim Square. So it probably goes around in a triangle. I nearly did it again there. I was nearly on my way to Besiktas, which, if you're familiar with Turkish football, is a district with a famous football team, but it's well on the other side of the European side. Anyway, Google Maps has pointed me to this building. I'm not bottling out of this and taking the metro. Okay, that's what we're looking for, the bottom of those two, but the top one will do as well, because I think I can take the tram from there. Christ, and I hope it's not as packed as this on the way over. Maybe more people are coming this way, but I can't see how they can get that many people onto such a small boat. Okay, we've disembarked and this is absolutely not where I boarded this morning. If you want to scroll back and see where I did board, it's definitely not here. Now, I'm not surprised I didn't find it on the way out. Across that busy street, there's a gap in a pair of blue corrugated iron fences, and you have to walk through there. Maybe there's an easier entrance on the other side, but it's actually quite tricky to find that particular ferry. No way whatsoever I'd have found that this morning. Okay, Okay, Muttonista, so kebab o'clock it definitely is. And I did tell you that this last item for me is the pièce de résistance of kebabs, my absolute favourite kebab. And I have arrived at a place called Maranda Doner. And you might be thinking, oh, Mutton, what are you doing? You're just sending us to another place for another doner. But no, this is not what is happening here. What they do here is provide kebabs of all sorts, but mainly from doner or variations on doner. Now the menu here is actually quite big. You've got like a mixed meze there. They even have that tartare I had earlier, but I suspect it might be vegetarian because very few places do it with lamb these days. Anyway, I found what I'm looking for, the holy grail of kebabs, the Iskender kebab. I'm going to get it ordered and I will tell you all about it in a few ticks. Right, the drinks arrived. I've gone with my old faithful, the ayran, the yogurt drink, and I need it because, well, a tray of pickles has arrived and I actually thought that that would be the usual Turkish pickled chilies, which are fairly mild but quite vinegary. But these are actually really rather hot. Pickled as well, but they're the full. Oh, wow. But yeah, those are the real deal. And incidentally, if your mouth is ever on fire because something's too hot, a yogurt drink is actually the best thing you can have to cool it down. So my kebab has arrived and it is absolutely mouth-watering Muttonistas. Let's pan down and I'll tell you exactly what we have in front of us. We have doner meat in a rich tomato sauce with tomatoes round the side, bread underneath, a couple of chilies on top, and lashings of yogurt. Now, I'm guessing they've already done this, but normally hot butter is poured on top of the kebab. Oh yeah. First of all, the doner, as we saw as we were coming into the building, is of good quality. You can see when it's a little pink or red in the middle, there's a fast and heavy turnover, and you can see it dripping with those meaty juices. So now to try it with the yogurt. Oh, by heck, that's gorgeous. What a beautiful combination that is. The tomato, the yogurt, the butter, the doner, and we haven't even got onto the chilies yet. It's like a tomatoey, buttery, rich, meaty and dairy magic carpet transported to your taste buds. It is awesome. It's a dish I've had quite a few times, or ordered it quite a few times in the UK, and more often than not, unfortunately, it's been butchered, but this is right on the money, this is. Anyway, I'm going to have my 15 or 20 minutes in heaven eating this, and I'll be right back with you when, for sure, I'll have demolished all of this. Told you I'd polish that off, didn't I, Muttonistas? Now it's time for a nice cup of tea. Just to fill you in with the fact that you should probably be all aware of, the Iskender kebab comes from a place called Bursa, which isn't too far away from Istanbul. It's about a 10-hour round trip if you take the ferry, but I just couldn't be done with that. You have to take the ferry, then a taxi for quite some way, and just for one kebab, well, I thought I'd bring it from here because this is probably the second best place you could possibly bring an Iskender kebab from. And I did intentionally save that kebab till last, as it's my favourite, because it is actually my last night in Istanbul. But do not worry, Muttonistas, it is not the last vlog from Turkey, not by any means. I'm travelling around the country and I'm going to go to some obscure bits which gastronauts and tourists alike visit a little, but not too much. Okay, so my tea has now arrived. I love this stuff. I don't know why the Indian tea we serve in Britain, which we all have with milk, turns me off. Probably it's just a bit too bitter for me. Anyway, that's been a tremendous vlog set over 3 days, and we got about 7 or 8 dishes in, did we? All beautiful examples of local Turkish street food and restaurant food. What about the prices? Wow. The most expensive meal I've had on this trip cost me about 15 quid, and that was for the raw lamb and the liver, so, you know, reasonably expensive ingredients for Turkey. If you feel you know more than me about these dishes, please inform me, drop me a line. Anyway, it's time for me to sign off, to love you and leave you Muttonistas. Hope to see you soon on the next one, but until then, keep liking, keep sharing, keep subscribing, of course, but most of all, don't forget, you can't beat a bit of mutton.